Hey, what's up, guys? So I thought with this whole Activision Blizzard lawsuit thing going on and all of these kind of moving parts, it might be helpful for a lot of people if I create a kind of timeline to help guide everyone through like what's happened and what's going on so far. And through that, I can talk about some of the things that I felt when these things came out or I thought about when these things were coming out. I'm also going to talk about how these things might be perceived from a consumer or someone outside of a business kind of perspective. If you're interested in a legal or business perspective, I suggest going and checking out Hogue Law on YouTube. He does a ton of these videos about the Activision Blizzard lawsuit, and I think they're really good. I'll put a link in the description to his playlist about it so that you guys can go check it out if you're interested in something like that. But yeah, I'm just going to go ahead and get into it and talk about the timeline and how I felt about a lot of these things, and then also we can talk about how that's affecting the stock of Blizzard. Okay, so you guys can see that I basically created this timeline here to help visualize what's actually happening here. So if you guys have been paying close attention, you know that California and the Department of Employment and Housing actually sued Activision Blizzard on the 20th, even though it didn't become really public knowledge until the 21st. And that's actually when Blizzard released their initial response, was on the 21st here. And as you guys might remember, the Activision Blizzard initial response was horrendously received by the public, and a lot of people gave a lot of pushback and had a lot of bad feelings about that entire thing and how that really worked out. So that was already a really bad initial showing from Activision Blizzard as far as their opinion is going to be concerned with the public. And we can actually see that almost immediately after this lawsuit and Activision Blizzard, they took a very small dip in their stock. And you might even say like that's nothing, like that could happen just normally, which you're right, it could. But I think it would be a little bit foolish to say that this didn't play any part in it, although I think it didn't play as big of a part quite yet because there wasn't a lot of mainstream news sources talking about this quite yet, and it was pretty niche. So probably only investors who were either invested in the game or really fluent with the community probably noticed this, and I'd say that would explain this small dip. But you could also go ahead and explain it as like possibly what's happening just naturally based on where it was going from before. It's hard to tell. I'm not an economics expert, so I could just be completely wrong, but that's what it seems like to me. And then we also see that it's kind of silent the next day, so nothing's really happening. So that could also possibly be why this kind of goes back up again. I mean, there were a lot of players leaving around this time. I think that's when I released my initial video, was around this time, and when I left the game. So there's definitely a lot of people leaving and a lot of people really in a not a good mood about the company and about how the game even was standing as far as like its content, like even as far as the game is concerned itself. A lot of people were dissatisfied with it, so this definitely just caused kind of a bigger exodus from the game was already happening. And then here on the 23rd, we get J. Allen Brack and Fran Townsend's email to their staff. Yeah, so if you guys remember what these emails even were talking about, J. Allen Brax was kind of saying like, this shouldn't happen here. We don't want this to happen here. I don't like that this is happening here. We need to take a bigger initiative into kind of dealing with this. And that kind of contradicted Blizzard's initial statement with saying that this isn't happening here at all. We think that the DFEH is lying and stuff like that. So already contradiction. But then you look at Fran Townsend's response, and she's basically saying, I don't think this is happening here. So she's more in line with what Blizzard's initial response was, but her response was like, I haven't seen it. I haven't noticed anything like this. But a lot of the pushback on that was like, hey, Fran, you've only been here for 4 months. You don't really know what it's like. Plus, you're a high up executive. You're not going to see it in the same way that women in lower positions are being treated by men above them, because there's almost no men above you. So that's kind of how like those two things were received. And we know that these emails and the initial response were incredibly poorly received from the employees, at the very least, and the players, obviously, because a lot of the players were leaving. There's tons and tons of videos about about it going up on YouTube, about the dissatisfaction with the response from players. But we know that the employees on the 26th of July signed a petition denouncing the statements that Blizzard had given. I don't remember how much it was initially. I believe it was like 1,000, but it got up to like 3,000 former and current employees of Blizzard and Activision Blizzard kind of denouncing these statements, saying like, no, we don't like what's going on here. We don't agree with it. Us as the employees, we are against the statement. We don't believe this. That's the executive's opinion. That's not our opinion. And then you can see that the trading stopped here because that was the weekend. But immediately after these two statements and after the weekend kind of festered what people were seeing, the stock dropped. And then you have this employee signed petition coming out, like denouncing the company statements and the executive statements. And then you can see that the stock just immediately tanked. And this is probably because a lot of investors now realized that the executives over at Activision Blizzard no longer had the support of their employees. How are you going to run a company when you don't have the support of your employees? If your employees are kind of not into it anymore, they don't believe in what you're doing anymore, they believe that you are against their interest. How can you run a company when your employees feel that way about like all the goings on? So that is also probably why this stock just immediately tanked here. On top of that, we also have, I believe this is probably when bigger like news stations began reporting about this, because now it is actually this huge thing where you have a ton of employees, like former and current, not only creating these this petition and saying, no, we don't like what's going on here, but sharing their stories online, on Reddit, on Twitter, talking about all the mistreatment they went through and everything bad that they had to deal with. So that is why I think that the stock really went down here. So it's not just like, oh, the employees are denouncing it. And of course that's a major thing, but it's also, you have like all this time now, you have like almost a full week of this like festering wound that's just gotten to a point where people are like, mainstream is now noticing it, and it just kind of immediately causes this drop here. And then we get this response from Bobby Kotick, which initially was pretty well received because his was a much more kind of tempered and response, saying like, yeah, we're going to take action and we're going to take responsibility for this, kind of in a way. It still was saying like, no, we don't really think that all of these allegations are factual and true, but it was way more tactful in how it responded to the allegations and to the employees and to the public, as opposed to J. Allen Brack, Fran Townsend's email to staff, and the initial response, which is what really set everything off, was this initial response. It was so poorly received from the community and the public that it really kind of just set off this horrible situation that's going on here. But we can see that his response at least satisfied some investors, because the stock took a small increase, like a minor one. It stopped tanking at least and went kind of up. But then you have this employee staged walkout where it was like these employees who had, most of the ones that had signed this petition and more, I assume, had also kind of said, we're going to take a stand. We're going to stop working, which around this time, the WoW team had also said that they're going to take off like a week or whatever to kind of fix this stuff within their culture from even doing anything on the game at all. So this was kind of like in that same vein. The employees are like, we're going to stage a walkout. We're going to protest this treatment of women in the workplace, and we're not going to do any work for the company that does this kind of thing. And of course, when something goes from just a petition denouncing these statements to a full-on employee walkout, things are going to get so much worse for like the perception from the public, because now they're saying, wow, this is like a mutiny. So the employees, so this is what we can see from the outside. We can see everything is bad. The employees must see things way more clearly than we do. And now they're staging a walkout because they disagree with the executive statements. And it could be that the executives are mostly trying to cover their ass. So you have that huge sentiment from the public. Of course, there's some people who don't really care about this, but I mean, a large part of the public does. And so now you have this like employee staged walkout. You also have like ex executives on Twitter talking about their experience, and like high end game devs like Ghostcrawler talking about his experience. And then you have this entire Cosby suite thing coming out and coming more to light. It was mentioned in the initial lawsuit, but there was like pictures and stuff that was divulged on social media that really kind of pushed this entire thing forward. So this started getting way out of hand for Activision Blizzard to even kind of like deal with at all. After the walkout, you have Activision Blizzard hiring this law firm to come in and review their policies to make sure that they're compliant and they're not being, untoward like against any of their employees, which I apparently satisfied investors enough for like that Thursday before the weekend training kind of ended here. But the one thing I do want to hit on about this is that the law firm they hired, one, I believe Ian Hazzikostas had worked at before, which creates some kind of conflict of interest. Though I believe that they had worked with this law firm in the past, so it's not completely like randomly chosen or like maliciously chosen. Blizzard and Activision Blizzard had worked with this law firm in the past. However, that law firm is known for union busting against Amazon employees. So that is not good, like from an outsider perspective, if you know that, or if you're the employees and you know that, you're feeling like, ooh, I don't know if I like Activision Blizzard hiring this law firm known for union busting when we're so dissatisfied that we might create like a union or try some form of unionization. That is not good for in the eyes of an employee if you're there, or if you're just an outside observer and you happen to know that, then this kind of seems a little bit malicious. I don't know enough about the law. I'll let Hogue Law like deal with that. That seems a little bit malicious to me, but I don't know anything about the law, so I'll let the experts talk about that. And then we also have today, where we can see that this also dissatisfied employees again, because now we have this free fall again. So the stock, and it's not like the stock was like kind of dipping hard and going up like constantly. Like this was pretty steady for a while, and it was looking pretty good overall for Activision Blizzard. Now it's not looking good. It's tanking. Like this kind of drop is a ton of money. $10, that's over 10% of a drop here. That's a ton of money when you're talking about how much value is inside this company. So the market cap is $62 billion right now, okay? So, we're talking about, hundreds of millions, billions of dollars just being lost as far as their market cap in a couple of days. And of course, that's a incredibly like 3-head take of it's going to go up and like it's going to do all that weird stock market shit, but this is like not looking good for investors, and it's not looking good for the company. And I think that's why they have this JL and Brack stepping down here, because it's if you're not culpable, if you don't think you did anything wrong, if you don't think anyone's at fault, would you have someone step down? If you're the CEO, you're Big Bobby Kotick, you got all the billions of dollars or whatever. If you believe that nothing has gone wrong here, would you have the president of Blizzard step down? Possibly, if you're thinking it's a way of like creating like a scapegoat, but I don't know. I feel like that this is kind of almost some kind of admission from Blizzard. That's what it looks like from the outside, at least from my perspective. So that's where I'm at here. I'm going to go over some of these articles, and then I'm going to I'll link these articles here if you guys are interested in looking at them. So here we have the initial lawsuit, which I don't want to really go over too many of the details here because I don't need to go over. It's already been kind of gone over a lot, and I personally don't want to. But if you were interested in reading the entire like initial filing, you can read it here. Then we have Activision Blizzard's god awful take. Their initial response was just horrible. Like even if you expect a company to defend themselves, the way that this was perceived, not only by the public but by their employees, was just So poor. It basically, this right here is what caused most of these other things to happen, and kind of cascade downwards. This right here is the big issue that Blizzard had with their kind of this right here is the big issue Blizzard had with their perception to the public and to their employees. And then we have the email from J. Allen Brack to his employees, where he's kind of saying this whole thing, like, these allegations, these things happening are unacceptable, and we have to keep iterating that because of what's going on here. Then he tries to do some like self-preservation, I guess, with talking about how much he cares about women, I guess. I don't really know. And then he talks about some of the steps he wants to take to help fix the problem. So he's kind of admitting that there is a problem here, and that's where a lot of people kind of got the idea that like this is like separate from their initial response. And then we have Fran Townsend's response here. I guess she's in charge of the Employee Women's Network, and she's the chief compliance officer. So when you lose, like, as the compliance officer, when you lose the belief from your employees and like the trust from your employees, that's pretty rough, because how are you going to deal with compliance and having like employees be compliant when there are tons and tons of posts about people talking about, I went to HR, you told me, like, HR told me that nothing happened. I know that she was like not at the company for most of this, but I mean, still, that probably makes her statement even worse. But like, if you have employees saying they went the proper routes to try to deal with like this harassment, and then they were told basically too bad, and then you lose that you lose that vote of confidence from your employees, it puts you in a really, really bad position. And I think that the reason this was so poorly received was because of like how certain she seems that nothing bad happened at the company, but how short of a time she had been there, and how high up of a position she possessed. Because when she has that high up position, she doesn't really, see a lot of the stuff that happens on the lower end, where a lot of the employees were complaining about that stuff. And then we have CNN, like the bigger news organizations, picking up this employees petition signing on the 26th here, and this really led probably to a lot of the investor panicking, I presume. And then we have Bobby Kotick's response, which, I mean, you can see his is like longer and a little bit more detailed than the responses from the other Activision Blizzard employees. So his response was much better received, and by most accounts, a reasonable response to the allegations and to the employees and the public. And that's why it kind of eased that investing for a short amount of time before things kind of really got bad. And then you have this like walkout, where they have, like, you can even see these photos here where I mean, even from this photo, this looks pretty crowded. I don't really know how big the entire thing was, but when you have a large number of employees staging these walkouts, it's a spectacle for the media, and it's a spectacle for the public, and it really puts a perspective on the whole thing that is not good for Blizzard as a company, but is probably good for the employees, assuming that things get done either legally or internally to help aid a lot of these problems that they're having. So this is like a major event that hopefully leads to really good outcomes for the employees. It is good when, as a class of people, you can take the responsibility into your own hands when the people who are supposed to be responsible have failed. So when like the executives have failed to be responsible for this, and the employees, even if they haven't personally been affected, especially if they're in the class, like the men who are not being discriminated against, and in fact who are being, given these opportunities that they otherwise shouldn't have, just due to their gender, especially. So if you have people like speaking up and doing these things to help, then there's going to be at least some hope that something gets done for this, and hopefully the lawsuit kind of reveals all the wrongdoings and can alleviate a lot of those. But there's a really good opportunity for the employees to get what they want done here and potentially unionize and create an even stronger advantage for themselves. So it's really great to see these people standing up for what they believe in and, you know, doing what they think is right, even when it's hard. I know that Blizzard said that they would give all employees who participated in the walkout their full-time pay. But, I mean, that's mostly an optics kind of thing, right? Because they already know that they're losing this optics game hard. So that decision in itself was probably only for the optics. And it's still good to see the employees standing up for themselves here, especially since the executives couldn't or wouldn't do it. And then you have Activision Blizzard hiring the union-busting law firm. That was such a big issue for the employees. And it's good to see that it's at least being reported on here because the more people that know that there's a problem here, the better. It's really is a major conflict of interest to have like something like I guess it feels like a major conflict of interest to me to have not only one of your past employees having worked there, but also the fact of what this law firm is known for. So it seems like the employees should probably have at least some say in the law firm that's doing these investigations of their policies and stuff. It's the employees that are being discriminated against, so it seems reasonable that they would have some kind of say in that. And then you have J. Allen Brack stepping down from his role as the president of Blizzard. And like I said, I feel like this right here is probably... It feels like an admission of guilt, at least partially on Blizzard's end. So, because I'm not entirely sure if... Well, so I also know that they're like splitting this role in half and kind of giving like co-lead. And one of the new leaders is from internal Blizzard Games and is a woman. So they have like that kind of optic, like... They have that optic win, I guess, going in. And then the other person is from Microsoft. So they're from a separate culture. So it's a man, but he's not from within Blizzard. So he doesn't have... He's like... I guess they're kind of like, oh, he's not part of that culture, so it's okay. I think that's kind of what they're going for here. I mean... Either way, it feels like they're kind of like, oh, we got to do something. We got to do something. This is bad. Let's create a scapegoat. That's what it feels like to me. But... I don't really know. I'm not a lawyer, so. And then, yeah, and then I have their stocks up here just to show you, like, this is a 1 month view. So if you look at July 12th, it was looking good. I mean, Shadowlands itself wasn't doing good, but overall, like Call of Duty and King, which is the other subsidiary of Activision Blizzard, were doing good. And it just immediately drops down. And like, if you even go back to like, let's look at 6 months. So like the lowest it had been before that was in May at 88, and then now it's all the way down at 79. So it's looking pretty bad. It's they're a long way from the 103 that they had, but it's looking really not good for them here. So that's all I have to say on the topic. Hopefully this timeline here helps somebody understand this a little bit better, or maybe put this in better perspective for everything that's kind of happened. I know I didn't go over everything in like super crucial detail, but a lot of people already have, so there's a lot of videos out there, and I didn't want this video to drag on for too long. I know it's already going to be long just because of how much stuff there is in this, like, you know, it's really only like 2 weeks of time and just so much has happened. But yeah, I mean, I think that this timeline really helps illustrate what's happened here. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. If this video helped you or you just liked it, please like and subscribe. It helps me a lot. And I'll be making more videos, hopefully with more lighthearted feel than like this whole Activision Blizzard thing. But I feel like it's really important. So that's why I'm talking about it today. But thanks for tuning in, guys. Peace.